Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to go ahead and continue our discussion on division by applying our knowledge of division into multi-digit division. In fifth grade, students are expected to be able to solve division problems with a four-digit number such as 4,126 divided by a two-digit number. So two digits on the outside such as 23. This can seem really intimidating to our students in fifth grade, especially if they haven't taken the time to fully understand the simple division. I do have a video on that, so I would recommend that your students go back and review making ratio tables and using top bot sub, which is the same strategy I'm going to use to solve this problem here. But I am going to show you how to encourage your students to come up with the ratio table on their own, even if they don't know all of the multiples. For example, the number 23 is a very big number as far as a fifth grader is concerned. So coming up with all of those multiples of 23 can be quite the daunting task. To help them with that, we encourage students to use repeated addition, that is, just adding the same number over and over again to find their multiples if they're not able to multiply them on their own. For example, our divisor in this case is 23. So when we're making our ratio table, we're trying to find the multiples of 23 going from 0 to 9. Later in the school year, students will be taught that they can actually accomplish this same task by just going to 5 because you can find out what the multiples of 6, 7, 8, and 9 are just by adding, for example, if we wanted the multiple for 9, we could add the multiples of 5 and 4 to get 9. If we wanted 7, we could do 3 and 4. But for right now, we are going to go through the entire process of going all the way to 9 in order to make sure students have a full understanding of what they're doing. Once students have gotten to this point, but they're not really sure of how to find the multiples, again, we teach them to come off to the side and do repeated addition. Time 0 should be easy for all students. By now, every student should know that when you multiply by 0, the answer will be 0. And 1 should also be easy because anytime you multiply by 1, the answer is itself. So 23 times 1 is 23. So our problem now comes when we've reached 23 times 2. And the student doesn't know what that is just by doing it in their head or knowing the multiple. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they're not strong in multiplication and they prefer addition. In which case they can add on the side 23 plus 23 would get us 46. So that means 46 goes here next to the 2. Now instead of having to start all over and go over here and do 23 plus 23 plus 23, I mean I could, but by the time I get to 7, 8, and 9, I'm still just requiring way too much work for the students if I'm trying to add 23 8 times. Instead, we ask students just to add to the previous number. We know that 23 times 2 was 46, so if we just add another 23, we will get our next number. Add 23 again. In this case, I'm going to have to regroup, carry the 1. While this may seem like it's going to take a long time, and it will take longer for your students to accomplish this, it's important that they take the time to do this before solving the actual problem, especially if they struggle with division. Because what we're going to find out after we put all these in, as I explained in my last video, all the numbers that we need for solving this problem will be found here in this ratio table. So if I do this ratio table ahead of time, I have set myself up for success by providing myself all the information I need to succeed. Do a couple more here to get 8 and 9 real quick. Okay, so I've got my ratio table down. I'm ready to solve. Again, before we actually solve, we want to put dashes above each number in the dividend. That way we know how many digits should be in our quotient or in our answer. And we're going to solve by doing just one of them at a time. So if we start with 4, we want to know how many groups of 23 can we make with 4. Well, obviously 4 is way too small, so we go over to our ratio table and we see that the biggest number that gets close to 4 without going over is 0. So I circle the zeros. Remember, our ratio table is labeled top, bot, because the numbers on the left go on top, the numbers on the right go on bottom. And then anything that goes on bottom in the bot column, we always subtract. So I have to do 4 minus 0. Most students know by now, as I explained in my last video, that once you have subtracted, you need to bring down the next number. So I'm now looking at 41. Just like before with the regular division, I only need to come here to my bot column. I'm looking for groups of 23, but I need to know how many groups of 23 can I use to make 41. If I use one group of 23, it's just 23. If I make two groups of 23, that'll give me 46. 46 is bigger than 41, and that's not allowed. I can't have that. So I need to go back to the last number I could use, which in this case was 23 and 1. So the 1 goes up top, the 23 goes bottom, and anything that I put on the bottom, I subtract. I'm going to have to do some borrowing and regrouping here. You may find that this is exactly where your students struggle, is with the borrowing and regrouping, in which case it is not a bad idea to spend some time with some easier, lower grade level problems that just cover borrowing and regrouping. All right, so I finished subtracting. That means my next step is to bring down the next number, which leaves me with 182. I'm going to use my ratio table, my top bot sub strategy. If 182 is the largest number I'm looking for without going over, that means 184. No, that's too big. We can't go over 182. So right before that was 161. I circle that, and the number in the top column that goes with it. Now I know that 7 goes up top. In other words, 23 goes into 182 7 times. Put the 7 on top, 161 on bottom, and subtract. We're almost done. We finished subtracting, so we bring down our next number. Gives us 216. Again, I go to my top bot column. The number is 216. The highest number I can get to without going over is 207. So a 9 will go on top, a 207 on bottom. I'll need to borrow and regroup for this one. I have a remainder of 9. Now in 5th grade, we do not use the R for remainder because I will teach your students as the year goes on how to continue these problems and come up with a decimal answer. So for right now, we teach students to turn it into a fraction. Their remainder should be in fraction form because fractions are the same as decimals. And if I'm going to teach them later that their remainder can be turned into a decimal, I also need them to understand that that decimal represents a fraction that is equivalent. So to come up with that fraction for the remainder, instead of putting the R, draw the fraction bar first. The bottom number, or the denominator of the fraction, is always whatever the divisor was, so 23. And your remainder is your numerator. Our remainder was 9, so we put it as our numerator. In other words, 4,126 divided by 23 is 179 and 9/23, or 9 pieces left over out of the groups of 23 that we were working for. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave your comments below, and don't forget to click the subscribe button if you want to get notifications when I post new videos. Thank you. Have a great day.